Hi, my name is Gerard Cachon. I'm a professor here at the Wharton School, and I was also a member of the design team for Course Match. So I'm here to talk about how we designed it, why we designed it, and some of the benefits of Course Match to the students and to the school as a whole. So when we started off, we thought, what were our goals in putting together a system for allocating courses? And we had two. The first was ease of use. We didn't want multiple rounds, and we didn't want to force students to have to think strategically or through complicated problems. Students just want their courses, and so that thought process should be as simple as possible. The second goal was fairness, and this is the more important one. We're a community of students, and so we don't want some students getting everything and other students getting far less. So we wanted a system that would generate a solution of courses to students that everybody would perceive as being fair. Now, to understand why Course Match achieves those two goals, it helps to understand a little bit about alternative systems and why they don't work so much. So the simplest system would be to take our 1,800-ish students, line them up in some random order, go to the first student, says, pick your courses. When that student's done, go to the second, pick your courses, all the way to student number 1,800. It's not that complicated to implement that system, but it's not very fair. The students in the beginning of the line are clearly going to have an easy time finding a good schedule. The students at the end of the line, not so much. An alternative to a simple line would be to go to something that is familiar to business school people, and that's a market, or in this case, an auction. You can imagine you would have an auction where every student was given a bunch of tokens. They would go off and bid using those tokens. We would find some clearing prices in an auction and end up with an allocation of courses to students. We like markets in business schools because markets are efficient at allocating resources, and so why not apply it to our courses? Well, there's two reasons why it doesn't really work very well. So in a real market, you give a bunch of people dollars, let's say, and they bid on a product. Let's say it's an iPhone. And the people who really want the iPhone are willing to pay the posted price, and the ones who don't want it so much, they don't either bid or they bid low and they don't get the iPhones. So at the end of the market, you have some people with iPhones and less dollars, and others with no iPhones, but they have dollars. And they can use those dollars to buy something worthwhile, like an education at the Wharton School. It doesn't work that as nicely in a course system because at the end of a course auction, you would have students with courses and students with tokens. But tokens are worthless at the end. I mean, they're worth less than a Venezuelan peso at the current time. So it's not very much consolation to a person who doesn't end up with courses to say, hey, you've got a whole bunch of these extra tokens. And the other reason why it's not so good is while in the iPhone market, the ones who wanted the iPhone got it, the ones who wanted it the most got it. That doesn't always happen in a course auction. You really want a course, you think it will clear for 500, you bid 1,000, whoops, the clearing price was 1,010, so you end up without that course. Another student, for whatever reason, doesn't even really want that course, but bid 1,200 and ends up in that course. So this misallocation happens pretty frequently in an auction. So a simple line doesn't work, an auction doesn't work. Course Match was the solution. Course Match begins with a set of prices for every course in the system. Finding those prices is the secret sauce, the super duper technology behind Course Match. To give you a sense of how hard a problem that is, the number of possible prices, even in a system of the size of Wharton, exceeds the number of atoms in the universe. So clearly we can't check every single price combination, but what we can do is fire up a bunch of servers on the cloud, crunch through billions of combinations in an intelligent way, and end up with a price for every course. Now, what's so useful about this price is that then the system looks at every student's preferences and says, this is the schedule that's going to maximize the preferences you told me about given these prices. And it does it for every single student. So how does this achieve our two goals? Well, in terms of fairness, it means that every student gets the schedule that maximizes the preferences they reported. That means that every student can look at their schedule and prefer it over any of the schedules that their friends got. That's a nice notion of fairness. It's also relatively easy to use because, unlike many rounds, we have a single round with course match. And more importantly, there's no need to think strategically. If you're going to get the course schedule that maximizes your preferences, you don't have to worry about how other people are going to be reporting their preferences. In an auction, you would. Clearly, you need to think about what other people are going to bid, not with course match. You don't have to think about other people at all. You just have to think about your own preferences. But there's a famous saying in economics that there's no free lunch. And the no free lunch here is if you report garbage preferences or preferences, if you don't take much time and put effort into telling course match what your preferences are, it will go off and give you the best schedule to the preferences you reported that are not so good. So if you want a good schedule, you have to think carefully about what your preferences are. The strategy that we have discovered is most successful for students is look at the 200 to 300 sections out there and find the 10 to 20 of them that you're willing to take. Report your preferences to a large set of them, and that'll allow course match to find the right combination that's going to give you the best schedule. So to recap, and there's no system out there that's going to give every student everything that they want, but course match is going to give every student most of what they want, and it's going to do it in one round, relatively easy to use, no strategic thinking, and most importantly, it's the fairest outcome we can figure for a course system.
As a follow-up to the introduction you just saw, the next series of slides is designed to give you a higher-level understanding of course match as a scheduling system used in the Wharton MBA program. So what is course match? First developed and used at Wharton, this is a course registration platform that the MBA students use for selecting core and elective courses. Using a powerful algorithm, course match considers students' relative preferences and overall supply and demand for course sections to give students their best possible schedule. The Wharton MBA program has used course match since fall of 2013, and the system has proven to increase student satisfaction as well as promote fairness of schedule allocation for our students. Course match can easily be defined in 3 terms. Let's first start with utilities. This is one's relative desire for specific course sections. Next is clearing prices. Prices are assigned to sections based upon the supply and demand for a particular course section. Lastly, budget, a predetermined number of tokens used to purchase sections. There are also 3 steps to course match. The first step, students will report their course section utilities. Second, course match will then establish clearing prices for each course and will buy students' schedules. Lastly, a drop add period allows for final adjustments to schedules. Let's talk a little bit more about utilities. Utility for all course sections is set to 0 by default. In other words, a course with 0 utility will not be considered for a student's schedule. If you wish to place utility on a course, you may select from 0 to 100 on as many courses as you are interested. It is important to note that utilities are relative. In the bottom corner of this slide, you'll see 2 student utility placements. One where a student uses the full 100 scale, whereas student B uses a scale from 0 to 10. However, their ranking is identical as far as the system is concerned. To elaborate a little bit more on clearing prices, once the system has closed, course match begins to assess the relative demand for a section as well as the supply of seats for the course sections that are available. In an instance where the demand exceeds supply, a clearing price is assigned to that course. You will be assigned your best possible schedule given your relative preferences, this is your utility placement, the budget that you've been allocated, the course unit maximum that you've set for the system, and the course section clearing prices. So let's elaborate on the budget as well. Budget is only good for 1 semester. Tokens do not carry over. Your budget is determined by a few things: how many fixed core course units you are enrolled in, your first or second year status. Therefore, first year students are given a slightly smaller budget than their second year student counterparts. Lastly, whether you participate in our stakeholder survey as a rising second year student, we give you added tokens in the next instance of course match. At the bottom of this slide, you will see a table that describes how the budget is determined for a first-year student based upon how many fixed core course units they are enrolled in. So it's important to point out that utility does not equal budget. Any one student could place utility on every single course section that is available in Course Match, as high as 100, which is what the system allows. That does not correspond to your budget, which is a predetermined number that is used to purchase your schedule. So let's bring this all together. These are the steps below that we just described that produce your best possible schedule. So first, students report their utilities in the Course Match interface. Once the system closes for the utility placement period, the system runs and clearing prices are established. Courses are then purchased and students are given their schedule. There's also a drop add period for students to make adjustments to their schedule. And then lastly, you're all set. You can begin your courses. The registration process can be broken down into 3 steps. So it's important to know if you wish to make adjustments to the schedule that you've been given, or you're not 100% satisfied with your schedule, all is not lost. You can modify your schedule in the steps below. There's the initial course match algorithm run, where you've placed utilities and your budget is considered and a schedule is purchased for you. Second, there is a drop add buffer period, which is typically a 3-day window where you're allowed to modify your requests. At this point, your budget is no longer a factor. Lastly, there is a first-come, first-served drop add period where you can make modifications to your schedule in accordance with the academic calendar, which will be available to you upon arrival at preterm. So what's next after this presentation? First, it would be advisable to have the presentation on hand, as we've prepared a series of course match demonstration videos for you to review to explore the interface a little bit further. Also, stay tuned for more information over the summer months as it relates to not only preterm but course match specifically. Lastly, you'll attend a course match presentation at preterm where your academic advisor will explain the interface more in depth. It's at that point that you'll be given access to the system and can begin placing utilities on courses.